Hello and welcome to Irreverent, the podcast where not one madman talks to himself for an hour and a half. Now two men talk to themselves for an hour and a half. Unfortunately, the other man is not here. I mean, it doesn't have to be an hour and a half. We did make a bet to Luke for it. All right, well, you know what? I'll cut it down. It'll be however long I want it to be because this episode's all about me, me, me. Because I'm the only one who knows what in the crap happened this last weekend. Um, so Eli was supposed to be silent this episode, but I guess he just can't resist my company. Dang it. Dang it. I don't know if he's gaslighting me. Guys, I've been having a full length conversation with Eli, who you can't hear right now, but he is. You know what, Eli? You're like NASCAR. You're manufacturing a conversation that's not actually happening. You're like the stage breaks, but now you're just being a bad co-host. All right. So I'm going to ignore Eli, and I'm going to get into this episode. Now he's just gaslighting me. He's trying to get in my head. Listener, all you can hear is me at this point. Sound like an idiot, but it's okay. I'm only doing this because of the other. He's and he's interrupting me now, which is why you're hearing this. Anyway, this episode was supposed to be me talking about NASCAR this past weekend because Eli decided it was time for me to talk to myself for however long I'll talk to myself. So, without further ado, let's get in. I'll try to not get affected by Eli's interruptions, but you and I can do this, listener. Luke, go ahead, get your bath towel on, relax, get some hot water on yourself. Hear my sweet voice talk to you about a sport you really don't care about, but you really just want to listen to my voice because Corey's is getting rather stale. All right. Eli says, "Are you trying to seduce Luke now?" I'm gonna have to start working on my Eli impression so I can, yeah, I can be Eli. I can do both of this. I can do a back and forth episode. I don't know if Eli would want me to do an impression of him because this is gonna be out on the internet. You want an impression? Do you want me to do both of us tonight? Do you want me to do an Eli and a Luke conversation? Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm glad I got two waters, one for me and one for my Eli impression. My armpits are sweating. This is going to be so bad. So I'm going to restart the episode, but now I'm going to be me and Eli. Hello and welcome to Irreverent, the podcast that shouldn't really be talking right now, but with all that's gone on this last weekend, I suppose we should probably do it. Since I have no real idea about anything that happened this last week in NASCAR, I will go ahead and pass it over to my other co-host who really happens to like NASCAR. Hello and welcome to Irreverent. Yep, that's it. It's my turn this week to talk about this last week in motorsports. Unfortunately, most motorsports at this point in the season have died. You've got IndyCar was the first casualty, and slowly but surely our WEC and IMSA buddies have gone off to MotoGP's closing up for the season. And sadly, NASCAR's doors have closed for the season. Well, I wouldn't say sadly. Anyway, NASCAR's last three races were this weekend. We got a Truck Series champion crowned, we got an Xfinity Series champion crowned, and we got a Cup Series champion crowned. So I don't really know too much about what happened in the truck race, but I definitely watched the Xfinity and Cup races. So I think for this review of NASCAR Championship Weekend in Phoenix, I'll go ahead and probably pull up my NASCAR app to kind of see what went on with the truck race. But I can probably just kind of, I don't know what's the word, pour out my heart about the Xfinity NASCAR race. There, I have a lot to say because Xfinity crowned a champion that kind of proves to me that Hendrick bias is a thing. But there is so much going around the NASCAR Cup race. I feel like I have to spend, of course, the most time on that. But I didn't watch the truck race. Excuse me. I'm just gonna talk about kind of what some big events and the champion, which I'm actually excited about the champion this year. When I so Eli, I'm going to go into a backstory here, because when I was 14 years old, just kind of starting my NASCAR, you know, I don't know, watching experience, if you want to call it that. Um, I of course got a diecast, and one diecast I got was a car I really hadn't known about before, and a driver hadn't known about before. I just knew I really liked the paint scheme. It was now you can look this up, Eli. This was Ty Majeski's 20. Actually, it was just, I think it was his 2017 Bitto Honey car, but it was sold in 2018 Authentics line. And of course, I grabbed it. I did a little research on Ty Majeski, and of course, in 2018, like he had done absolutely nothing in any series besides race this amazing looking car. And he's had his stint in Xfinity, did a few Cup races, and the past couple of years in truck, if you haven't followed truck, he's really done a good bit. He's got with Thor Sport. Is it called Thor Sport? I think so. I think it's Thor Sport. But anyway, it's the top tier Ford equipment in the truck series. And the last couple of years, he's been winning a few races. He's been getting better and better. And I really want to say, I'm not going to do research because that's not what I do. He's been able to make the championship 4. And of course, it didn't work out last year. Last year was considered one of the worst truck championship races of all time. It was a joke. So there was a good bit of pressure on the truck series in general going into this championship 4 race. And of course, I know I'm talking about Ty Majeski, but I think I'm going to finish with just that he made it again this year, and I was rooting for him. But yeah, the truck series had a lot in its shoulders this year to make a good championship race, because of course last year there was a lot of drama. And if you didn't watch, I'll just quickly sum it up with so there was 4 championship contenders. One championship contender purposefully spun the other, ruining his championship. The one that got spun the other one who spun him. And then it came down to 2 racers who absolutely a lot of people thought were the Mickey Mice of the championship 4, and Ben Rhodes ended up claiming his second title. This year, as far as I know, I haven't seen anything on the internet complaining about Ty Majeski, but Ty Majeski is this year's Truck Series champion. Let me go to standings. I forget if he got 2 wins or 3 wins on the year. I know 3 wins. A lot of people really were rooting for Corey Heim to win. Corey Heim is the dude that got spun last year. And this year he was even better than he was last year, doubled his win count. Unfortunately, fell short behind Ty. But yeah, I haven't heard any controversy. Of course, I didn't watch the race. I'm just here to tell you what happened in Truck Series weekend, and the fact that it's so amazing that this diecast I got in 2018, who I thought the driver was going to do absolutely nothing in his career, he now has a bit of hardware, and I think that's nice because that diecast was worth a lot to begin with, and now it's probably going to be even worth more. But yeah, I don't have anything really more to say about the Truck Series. When you look at the stats, I do think probably Christian X and Corey Heim were, they had the best stats of the 4. Grant Enfinger was the only one I would say, was probably the worst. Ty Majeski was probably the 3rd seed, but with how good Ty Majeski was the last few years, I don't think I would say he's an undeserving champion. I think he's been really solid. 6 or 7 career wins at this point. Championship. But yeah, there's a reason I guess there probably hasn't been much noise about the Truck Series race this year. Probably one reason is because it nearly wasn't as horrible as last year. And another reason is because the Cup race happen, which we'll get to, but we got to go on to Xfinity. So there you go. That's the first part. Luke, you're probably midway through your shower by now. Um, we really don't want to see that. I know. But since you're midway through your shower, let's go ahead and finish your shower with the Xfinity series. And then when you're relaxed, we can get on to the meat of the subject. So that's your truck series championship for this year. Next up, 2024 Xfinity series. Now, this one, I do have a bit more to say. I got to watch a bit of this race. Going into the race, your championship four contenders were Austin Hill, Justin Allgaier, Cole Custer, AJ Allmendinger. Now, this may have been the closest championship four in terms of performance. I don't think there was any one that was better than the other by a mile. I just know, of course, I was rooting for Cole Custer, but if you're looking at sheer consistency, I think Cole Custer was the best of the four. If you're looking at pure performance and numbers, Austin Hill was probably your favorite. This is kind of my problem, and of course, it's not nearly as bad as Joe. No, I'm not gonna. No spoilers. No spoilers. Oh, I was about to say no spoilers. Um, we're not talking about Cup yet. But I'm just saying whatever happened in the Cup race is probably a lot more egregious than what happened in Xfinity, and that's why I'm not gonna really compare it too much. But Justin Allgaier was your 2024 Xfinity champ. I watched a bit of the race. It was kind of a slower race. Definitely a few cautions out there. I don't want to say nothing really happened because that's just kind of cliche for me lately. A stock car race is a stock car race. Two stages happen. There's racing going on, and I do want to mention during the race, of course, I heard this. I didn't see this, but apparently with 100 laps to go in the race, Justin Allgaier was still a lap down. Somehow got his lap back, was able to win the race, crown himself a champion. The people on the internet really love the fact that Justin got this championship, and that's because I know I filled you in completely on Ty Majeski, but there's a lot more filling in to do for Justin Allgaier because this was his 7th championship four appearance. And no one has been closer to tasting the hardware than Justin Allgaier. He's been in Xfinity for a long, long time. I think 500 starts, if I'm not wrong. 400, 500 starts. He's got a lot of experience under his belt. Um, and of course, he's got a lot of fans. He drives for none other than Dale Jr. So of course, people root for this guy who has tried so hard and drives the most popular driver in NASCAR. And I think, of course, I wouldn't say he's undeserving of a championship. I think he totally any of these four drivers in the top four, I think if they won the title, the fans would be pretty happy. Cole Custer is an established champion, one of the better Xfinity drivers to come through the field in some time. Austin Hill was really good this year. AJ is AJ. Allmendinger is great. But yeah, Justin has tried so hard for so many years. I mean, ever since I've been into racing, it seems like he's there every year and just falls short. So I do want to say that's why I'm not comparing it to Cup, is because I think Justin Allgaier was such a choice of the fans this year and really every year for a long time that if he did win, even with probably the most egregiously bad stats in the world, people would still be happy for him just because he's come so close so many times. But here's what I'm going to say about this title. He has come so close so many times and he hasn't won. The difference between Justin Allgaier and your 2024 Cup Series champion is your 2024 Cup Series champion was going to be a legend whether he won this or not. But Justin was probably not. And he gets a ton more fan support. And once again, all these points are going to be me slam dunking that Cup race. I got to get through this Xfinity weekend. But there was a lot of people happy for Justin and the people I followed. And it kind of got me thinking, like, what is it about the fact that it just seems to me that I feel like Hendrick Motorsports isn't just a monopoly with the racing. I think Hendrick Motorsports has created a monopoly with the fan base. I think I'm gonna this point will become clear as the episode goes on, but when people were really rooting for Justin Allgaier with the stats he had compared to his competitors, of course he was good. It just got me thinking that um, back in 2020, when Chase Elliott won his first Cup title, everyone acknowledged that Kevin Harvick probably should have won that title. And I'll say any real year. I mean, 2019 and 17 don't count because those were the champions of that four would have been champions no matter what format they used. I'm thinking 2018. Yeah, I think all this kind of goes in line. So I'll start hitting home the point now. In 2020, when Chase Elliott won that Cup title, you did not hear anybody demanding that the format be changed, even though 2020 was probably the most egregious abuse of the format ever. Now I'll sympathize. This year was probably worse. Okay, it was worse, and there's probably been other years that have been a little worse. 2020 is on that list of abuse of the system. Chase Elliott did not deserve to win that title. In fact, I think Brad Keselowski's stats may have even been better than Chase Elliott's in the championship four. Like, actually, no, Denny Hamlin or Brad Keselowski probably should have beat Chase Elliott, along with Kevin Harvick. Chase Elliott was okay, but once again, no one was calling for that format to be changed, even though it was pretty blatant that this was another instance like 2015 or even 18 that some change would be healthy. And then you have this year. Now let's get into the Cup race. That Xfinity race, I wasn't really going to discuss that. I'm sorry. It was really just there for me to talk about how Justin Allgaier kind of proved to me that Hendrick is kind of ruining it, and it kind of runs the sport as a whole. Because once again, I just talked about that 2020. A Hendrick driver won. I didn't hear any complaining. This year, I might as well spoil it because I'll talk about the race in a second. But your 2024 Cup champion is Joey Logano, if you haven't seen. This, of course, has just been huge in all the bad ways. I have, of course, never seen this much just demand for everything to change. People were threatening to retire. Brad Keselowski, yeah, and Luke, if and also our dear listeners, if you're wondering, Eli did bring up a good point. He said the one driver. Dang it, I forget what he said already. I'm so locked in. Basically, what the one person who couldn't win it. Yes, there we go. And he's right. Joey Logano was the one guy who everyone was horrified would win the championship, and that's exactly what he did. Because, in case you don't know, Joey Logano has the worst average finish of a Cup champion in history. That's right, in history, 17.4. That's the worst average finish. 7 top fives, 13 top tens, 4 wins, which honestly, 4 wins is the second most this year. So I don't know. It's okay, but everyone does have a point. It's true. All these are not championship level stats when you compare his compatriots who had usually at least 18 top tens, double the top fives, probably the same amount of wins, more consistent. And this did, of course, expose the playoff to be its worst. This exposed all the flaws in the playoffs. But here's the point I want to talk about, because a few days ago I actually watched a video by David Land. And David Land, if you're listening, subscribe. I mean, I'm subscribed to you, so least you could do for us. Right, Eli? He said, yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I'm responding to Eli right now, guys. And David Land, if you're listening, you get to meet Eli in the next episode. So, dang it, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, David Land brought up such an interesting point, and I want to bring it up. It is, it is David Land, because this guy's been doing it. He knows what to do, and he brought up a point that just made it all make sense with the Justin Allgaier thing, with the Chase Elliott thing. David Land said, of course, the playoff needs to be changed. He agrees, yada, yada, yada. And he said, I noticed this. He said, Joey Logano, this was his third Cup title. And of course, he brought up the point, which all of us should be bringing out. Joey Logano's won 36 Cup races. It's not like Joey Logano is this 4-time or 5-time Cup winner in his career and stole a championship. This guy has been winning bulk races for years now. Like, he is 4 away from the Mark Martin. This guy's good. He was going to be in the Hall of Fame no matter what. This guy is amazing. He really is one of the best things since sliced bread. And he brought out that Joey Logano is one of the most hated drivers in the series, but it's different from Kyle Busch. He brought out this, and I really liked it, that when Kyle Busch was winning these races and championships, people would pay tickets to go to races to root against Kyle Busch because they love to hate him. He said Joey Logano's hatred isn't marketable. And it's like, that's so true. I just, you think about that, and it's like, I remember when he won his first in 2018, I was there, and like, nobody was happy. That was the first time the Mickey Mouse champion came into existence, like the phrase Mickey Mouse, because the other 3 were so much better than him, but he won when it mattered. But then you have 2022, which doesn't get talked about enough, that even in Winston Cup points, he would have been second. Like, he was really good in 2022. I think he was a deserving title winner that year. So it's like Joey really speaks for himself. And it's this guy that people shouldn't be surprised is winning at the right time and doing all these things. But yet, this is the year and this is the season that they're demanding change. And I want to just talk about that point. David Lamb was right. It's not a marketable hate. If this was someone people could, like to hate because he beats all their favorite drivers on a week in, week out basis, oh my gosh. Yeah. David Land, watch out. Luke, watch out. Eli's unmuting. Guys, watch out. I got him out. I got him out.
The thing is, oh god, I've still got my monitor on.
I didn't even see. I'm still looking at Ty Majeski's Bit of Honey card, which is beautiful.
But no,
yeah.
The thing is, I did kind of want to talk about the David Blaine video, because specifically what you're talking about right now is the whole point of the playoffs is marketability. And they don't seem to be working for that at the moment.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know what it is about Team Penske as a whole that just isn't marketable, because they have beautiful paint schemes and likable drivers, but for some reason, actually, no, I'm not going to say for some reason. The whole reason I'm talking about this, it's Hendrick. Hendrick is the reason people want these playoffs gone. William Byron probably could have won the championship and people wouldn't have been this mad. And William Byron does have better stats than Joey, but we can agree William doesn't have the leverage that Joey has in terms of he's already a 2-time Cup champion. So it's like the Hendrick bias. I'm not saying that Joey deserved to win this year. I'm not defending him. I'm just saying it's very evident to me that the reason you can't make NASCAR fans happy is because all of them are predominantly Hendrick fans. I mean, your most popular driver is Chase Elliott. Your second most popular driver is Kyle Larson. One of your most popular drivers ever, Jeff Gordon, is a Hendrick driver who still has his car in there by a driver who's up and coming. It's like you have so many great drivers, but they're also immensely popular. So, of course, the reason Penske isn't marketable is because they're simply not Hendrick cars.
Yeah.
I think, no, you made this point. I don't know if it was for this, but dang it, I already forget it, like, because I'm wound up about the Hendrick thing, but I think if just...
Let me just talk a bit. I was going to say about the marketing stuff.
It was that, but you said if this is the year that makes people realize that they need to change the format, then they should feel like idiots.
Oh, you're talking about what I said last week. Yeah, I did say that. But it's true, because, okay, to be fair, I didn't say this year. I said this race, and that was about the race from the week before. Because Joey Logano was the only person who could win that validates those concerns. And he did.
Yeah. And of course, people are just now realizing that, hey, now we don't like it. But once again, two things. One, this shouldn't have been the year this happened. Number one. Number two, a lot of it is driven by Hendrick fans. And at this point, I'm willing to accept that as fact because I think not Justin Allgaier isn't just my biggest leverage, but also, once again, I was there in 2020 when Chase won. Everyone was like, yeah, Kevin Price should have won. Or I guess Denny, or I guess Brad, but no one complained. No one cared.
I did also want to point out, I can't remember if it was David Land's video or the Icebergs video, but one of them brought out that at maximum, 4 of the playoff races are going to be on broadcast television next year. Most likely 3. Because if it were 4, then someone's dropping Daytona.
Yeah.
That's less broadcast access than IndyCar has next year.
It's less broadcast than the Xfinity Series has next year. Every race is going to be on the CW for Xfinity.
Yeah, that's just... Like I said, if the purpose of the playoffs is to drive viewership, and it's being more poorly marketed than IndyCar, which people didn't hear the comments in the conversation earlier about how IndyCar constantly drops the ball in marketing, but they have one of the most popular Mexican drivers ever and don't have a race in Mexico, so that should answer that. But, like, the playoffs are failing harder than that. That's not a good sign.
Yeah, it's just
And both companies, mind you, both series renegotiated their TV deals this year.
Yeah.
So it's equal terms. It's equal. It's not like it's like, oh, NASCAR's had this deal for 10 years and, you know, IndyCar just managed to get like the sweetheart deal because of this. No, they both went into this at the same time negotiating this, and IndyCar's the one that got the better promotion.
Yeah, it's like, I don't really know what to say after this because I love the playoffs. I think they could be improved like anyone else, but when I was a kid and still to this day, I do believe one thing, and that is playoff races always have the potential to make guys drive harder. And I do agree that without the playoffs, the last 4 weeks wouldn't have happened, like the amazing moments we got. But yeah, I think that's all you can say is I think one of two things is going to put this to rest. Although one of these is going to be a band-aid. I think the band-aid way is to simply have a Hendrick guy win next year. I guarantee you it's going to fix everything. But the best way to fix this really is the two things of what everyone's been kind of agreeing on. Get rid of winning you're in, which, I mean, I'll agree simply because I want to be a good sport, but I kind of like winning you're in because that's just how I roll. But I think what everyone agrees on is let's have a formal championship round, not just a race. But those are the two ways I feel like everyone agrees that is the simplest way to make people happier with the system. And I guess I don't really know what to say. I think there's been so much said about the playoffs. I can't really add anything new. It's just I do want to mention that I don't want to see the playoffs go away, even if people don't like the fact it's called playoffs. It's just I think it's created a lot of great racing, and I think that's why people come is for great racing and tension and all that. But I like the fact it's different, and I know it's not a popular opinion right now, but once again, that's when I was 14. That's why I began watching, and to this day, I still think it creates great moments that are worth watching. Once again, I won't say it doesn't need fixing. I'll leave it at that. It's just it can be better, but I'm not going to complain super hard about it. I want to say I am so glad I lived this year because first of all, I didn't mean to actually talk about my car wreck in January. I just meant to say I'm glad I'm so glad this year happened because I
don't think that's come up on the podcast before now.
I did almost die,
It was in
guys.
the unaired pilot.
I literally almost died this January, so I'm glad I lived this year. But I got in a car wreck. But I'm so glad that because when you're a kid, what I think what's so appealing about this system is the fact it can be hacked. It's like, all right, what if I'm garbage all year, but I win a race? Okay, I can go fight for a title. And what if I just happen to muscle my way through the first round? Awesome. Then I potentially win a random Talladega race and get myself in the round of 8. All of a sudden, I'm one lucky win away from getting into the title round. It's like this can be a super hackable system, and Joey Logano did it. It's like I'm perfectly okay going forward knowing that this happened. Like I just kind of appreciate the fact this happened. It's like Joey exposed this to a point. You know what? Joey should be in the Hall of Fame because he exposed it. Only champions can do this.
I think, honestly, part of NASCAR's problem with this is, like, one, they're trying to draw the football audience, which isn't going to work. It's never going to work.
I mean, we were talking about this before the podcast, that the reason people like NASCAR is for the culture. I mean, you're not going to turn a football fan into a NASCAR fan. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. And, like, calling it the playoffs, that is all you're trying to do, right? So you're already putting yourself at a marketing disadvantage there, because everybody else who cares about motorsport is like, that's a dumb, stupid gimmick. And the people who it's like, oh, playoffs, I don't care because I don't watch football for the playoffs. I watch football because it's football. So, like, one of the first things they need to do is, frankly, just quit calling it the playoffs, go back to calling it the chase.
Yeah, I know when. So, guys, what's funny is before we start recording, me and Eli had like the deepest 1 hour discussion of basically motorsports in general. Like we started with F1 and gradually went to NASCAR. And
if I had thought to record it, it would have been another safety car special.
It really would, but this was a good one. Like we were agreeing on everything, guys. We actually hugged each other, and like, but that's the thing. I was talking to Eli. Like the reason I got into this is because of the culture. Like because I was into muscle cars as a kid. I was very Ford over Chevy, and to see a series that was very much was everything about what I was everything about. I was like, okay, I'll get into this. But yeah, like I kind of agree with Eli's points because they. I mean, I was a football fan when I was a kid, but the thing is, I was born into a football family. The reason I became a motorsports fan is just because some people are just like that. Like some people are just naturally inclined towards one thing, and what NASCAR has been trying to do for years is like, what's the word when you try to change someone, Eli? Like religiously convert? Is that it? Yeah, try to convert.
Yeah.
Try to convert NFL fans into NASCAR fans, and it's like the reason football fans are football fans is usually because they naturally gravitated towards that. And what every sport should do, but especially NASCAR, is pay attention to me first of all, because you need to market yourself to kids. Like the best chance you have at turning football fans into NASCAR fans is when a kid is young and can develop like fond memories of your sport, and just kind of want to watch it because of that. Like you gotta market yourself more towards a younger audience, because once again, these are race cars. What kid doesn't like a race car? I mean, there's so many marketing opportunities, but they've always gone for more adults than kids, and I think that's why they're in the situation they are in, is they've gone stale because they care about kids, of course, but it's not like that's the key marketing right now.
Like, honestly, I think what you do is you just take the top 12 drivers at the end of the regular season. Start them off with, I'm going to be completely honest, I don't fully understand how NASCAR's points work, because, like, I've had it explained to me, and whenever I try to do the math in my head, I still don't understand how people end up with, like, 8,000 points at the end of the season.
Could I explain? Because I think what you have in mind is the original chase format, where the best 10 drivers with the 2 winningest drivers were put into the chase.
They pretty much do something similar to that, yes. It's less gimmicky.
It's less gimmicky, and a lot of times of course, even that has controversy. You can't make everyone happy because a lot of people claim that the chase ruined Jeff Gordon's chances at being a 7-time champion. They argue it was made, which, if you look at the stats, Jimmy really benefited. He benefited because, he rose up to the occasion, him and Chad Canals. But yeah, like I said, I just don't have too much to add at this point because there's been so many suggestions, so much controversy. Everyone has their own opinion of what they think a good racing series should be. And I'm going to give it to F1 and IndyCar. The only way to avoid any of this is to just have a regular season-long points format. I really hope it doesn't go that way, but that's probably the only way to make everyone happy.
I feel like NASCAR is too far down the road with this system right now to be able to just go back to a regular season championship, though.
Mm-hmm.
As much as that's what I would want, they've been doing this for 20 years now.
Yeah, I mean, that exactly 20. I like I said, I think it was 2003 or 4 they started.
2004 was the beginning of the chase. To be fair, it was very different from what the playoffs would evolve to. It was closer to a small season championship tacked onto the end of the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that what they would need to do is basically go back to something similar to that. Just because, one, that gives you a chance to rebrand it again to something that's more appealing to broader motorsport fans, especially since you have a lot of new racing fans in the last 5 to 10 years. Specifically the last 5 years. But you do that, and you go with a system like that acknowledges a bit more that these drivers have always been on the track together all year.
Yeah. Now, I do want to put in the monkey wrench to the fact that every race still does count because Kyle Larson missing the 600 ruined his championship. So that was kind of amazing to me that actually happened. Because the biggest criticism is every race doesn't matter anymore, but we see this happen, and it's like, not only did we get to see Joey Logano's hack workout, but we also got to see what happens when you do miss a race. The consequences were a lot worse than I thought they'd be. I'll just say that.
I mean, the thing is, just, like, so much of the system could be benefited. Because also, what I will say is, you could even... Okay, I'm gonna say some silly stuff for a minute, because, like, we're gonna get into math. I apologize, but also, I don't at all. What you could do, as a part of the rebrand, is when you do the points reset, you could completely get rid of the idea of eliminating drivers from that point on, right? You just start with the top 10, top 12, top 16, whatever you want that to be, and then you do something very clever. You format the postseason points and the starting seeding points to where losing drivers are mathematically removed from the championship every race.
Eugenics.
Basically, you do it that way so that you don't have the gimmick of, oh, here's a cutoff round. But you do. If that's making sense. You play around with the points totals, the points numbers, for that. And that lets you get to a point where you could engineer it to where you will always have 2 or 3 cars that could win in the final race. But it wouldn't be a guaranteed, oh, there's 4 cars that will win because of these things. It would be these cars were the ones who were near the top throughout the postseason. And because of that, and sometimes it would be 2 cars, sometimes if you play the numbers right, you might be able to get even like 5 or 6 cars mathematically in with a shot at the title. And honestly, I think that shifting and being a bit more based on not just winning, but other aspects of it would kind of break it up. Because, like, imagine if instead of this year it being Joey Logano gaming the system and barely getting in, imagine if instead what happens is there are 6 drivers that, were able to be in it, that were mathematically able to win it in the last round. And Joey was number 6 of 6. And he managed to pull it off. Would we be having the same conversation if that were the case? Because I don't think we would. Instead, I think people would be talking about how it was this incredible underdog story of how, like, he barely was able to squeeze through, but he was just keeping just enough of an edge, and then in order to keep it mathematically alive and overcome it in the last race. And I know that because we've seen that happen before, and it is considered one of the great starts of one of the great births of a champion in Formula One. Because that's how Sebastian Vettel won his first championship.
Interesting.
Vettel won his first championship without once ever leading the championship until the end of the final race of the season.
Wait, that was 2009?
Vettel's first championship, 2010.
Oh.
9 was Braun.
I was going to say, because his 2012 and 10 seasons, I feel like were pretty similar. Because 11 and 13 were the domination.
In 2010, Sebastian Vettel never led the championship until the end of Abu Dhabi, when he won the championship. But he was always just on the edge of contention, to where, when the opportunity arrived, he was able to seize on it and take the championship. And that race, that race is horrifically boring from an action perspective.
That was when Fernando got denied. Now I remember.
Yep. There were, I think, 5 drivers that could have technically won it in that race, if I'm remembering right. Fernando, Vettel, Webber, Hamilton, and I think Button was mathematically in contention too, if I'm remembering correctly. But the thing is, that race, if you watch it, is a terrible race. Like, it is a god-awful race. But it is incredibly tense. Because Webber only needed to get into the top 4 to win, and Alonso just needed the top 6, if I'm remembering right. Meanwhile, Vettel, to have a realistic chance, had to win the race. So, that provided the tension, that provided the drama of what was a terrible race. So there's precedent for that system being able to work out. You just need to you basically need to hire an accountant to run those numbers. But you can do it.
I'd be into an accountant. Get an accountant.
I have an accountant. You think I do my taxes myself? I don't trust myself in numbers. I'm terrible at
it. Anyway, Eli's horror story about his taxes are for another day. Eli, how was your tax return last year?
I have an accountant, so it was good.
Do you know I actually did my own taxes this year. Very proud.
I've done that before, but when you have access to an accountant that charges you $50 to do everything, and you just hand him a stack of paper and some receipts, and
Wait, is
don't
this
have
your
to think
mom?
about it. No, but Kelly, his accountant for his business.
Oh, Kelly does it.
No,
That's cool. Oh, no?
it's his accountant.
He has an accountant. So cool. I didn't know he had one. Now I'm kind of jealous.
I mean, he runs a business.
I
Businesses have to file quarterly.
Well,
if we ever start making money on this, that means that we got to file taxes quarterly too.
Oh my gosh, guys, don't listen to our show. I really don't want to file taxes for Irreverent.
Don't worry, I know an accountant.
I get enough stress from just having to do my own taxes.
Anyway, I've said my part, so I'm going to go ahead and mute myself again. You go ahead and do whatever else you're going to do with the rest of this episode, because we're only at 45 minutes.
We got to 45. Well, guys, that was your special guest, Eli Weaver, showing up. I have no clue who that man is. I just saw this guy on the street who wanted to talk about the NASCAR playoffs, and he's like, fine. So I dragged him into this recording studio, and now he's leaving. He's walking off. He's holding hands with someone. Oh, he has a little girl on his shoulder, walking off into the sunset. There he goes. Goodbye, Eli. It was nice. Anyway, well, Luke, you're probably asleep by now. So to wake you up, we can do some ASMR race car sounds. This is what I'm gonna do with the final 15 minutes. Just kidding. I saw Eli actively wet himself. I don't know what. Eli said he half expected me to do it, so I mean, I can do it. I can put him in my headphones really quick. But I'll do that. I'll do that for the end. So, I think to wrap up this discussion, because once again, I don't want to add too much to this weekend of NASCAR because I want to say goodbye to it, but I also just don't want to drill into the ground. There's been so much said about the racing and the playoff format. I think what I want to do is talk about one thing, and we need to be happy. People need to be happy. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to choose to be happy here. And just, this was the first double digit win season for Ford since 2020. Guys, I can't believe it. This is kind of a dream scenario for me to Ford end up winning it all. I'm a Blaney fan, but also I'm a Team Penske fan, so it's completely fine to me that Joey won. I just want to end on this happy note that I want to give you an insight as to the last time Ford won 10 races in NASCAR. Now, what I did not plan to do this. The episode kind of naturally evolved to this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm quickly going to try to remember when Ford got 10 wins in 2020, where I was, what I was doing. So I'm going to look up the 2020. I could just go to Racing Reference. Oh yeah, while I'm going to fill my own space. If you guys want information, and Eli, I know you're listening, if you want F1, you probably already knows it. You probably already know it. But F1, IndyCar, NASCAR, IMSA, if you want any major motorsport stats, there is nothing honestly better than with all of its statistics. You know, you can do individual drivers, seasons. You can even do crew chiefs, but yeah, everything is super organized. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Racing Reference Info and go 2020. All I'm going to do. Oh, my bad. No results were found. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look up Kevin Harvick. And that should bring up Kevin Harvick. And I'm going to click on Kevin Harvick, and it's going to take me to his driver page. This is Kevin Harvick. He has spent 20 Cup full-time seasons, guys. That's pretty ridiculous. So we're going to click on 2020. This should take us to that season. Yep, here we go. 2020 season. Let's see when Ford got 10 wins in 2020. So we got Joey winning twice in the first 4 races. Kevin winning Darlington. That's 3. then Brad at Charlotte, Brad at Bristol, Kevin at Atlanta, Blaney at Dega, Harvick at Pocono, Harvick at Indy. Your 10th win, oh, that's funny, Brad Keselowski at Loudon. Okay, so 10 wins in Ford, 2020, the last time this happened. Where was I? Loudon, August 2nd, 2020. Guys, the last time Ford had this many wins in NASCAR, I hadn't even had my driver's license yet. Like, I turned 16 that May, but like, I didn't have my license because it was COVID. So I didn't have my license. Man, no job, no license, haven't even finished high school. It's crazy, like, I think this is why this season has been so fun for me is I'm saying my end of season goodbyes now on a positive note because the last 3 seasons, because one of our episodes we just recorded was entirely based on how 2021 traumatized me because we went from an 18 win Ford season to a 7 win and nothing good happened that year unless you were a Hendrick fan, which, by the way, Hendrick fans don't complain about 21. Wonder why. And then 2022 happens, that we got close. It was still a fun year. Last year happens. I was very numb until Blaney won the title. But then you have this year where they actually started winning a bunch. They won half of the final 24 races. But yeah, 4 years have passed since this has happened, and I just want to appreciate it because looking into next year, unfortunately, even though Ford is definitely getting some good changes, Chevrolet is going to be more stacked than ever next year, guys. I don't know if you've been. I don't think I've kept you up on silly season changes, but SVG is coming into Cup. He's going to be competitive with Trackhouse. Hendrick is going to be as competitive as ever, I assume. AJ Allmendinger is coming into Cup with Colleague Racing. That's, once again, not a fan of this. They're getting more and more stacked. Carson Hocevar is going to continue to be good with Spire Motorsports. Michael McDowell is pairing with Rodney Childers. You have Michael McDowell, who's one of the best road racers in the series, pairing with one of the best crew chiefs in the series. So I just really wanted to take this moment of appreciation because I realize it's taken 4 years for me to be happy. And unfortunately, Eli just said it may take more before I am again, and I agree. I want to be on the air to say I'm so happy this happened because, I mean, in 4 years, I was 4 years ago, I was still in high school. I still had 2 years to go. I had no license, no job. None of my 2 cars that I had existed. I didn't even have I think all I had, I think my entire 124 diecast collection consisted of Kevin Harvick's Jimmy John's car. Guys, 4 years is a long time. The next time Ford wins 10 times, let's say it is 4 years before Ford wins 10 times, where will I be? I'll be Eli's age. Honestly, not much might change, but change will happen. I'm just saying, if it is until 2028 when this happens again, I want to just be happy now because Ford won 12 times this year. We didn't get the manufacturer's title, but we got the driver's championship. So even though Chevy got it, we still won a ton and we still spoiled their party. Awesome. This was a great year. I'll take it. I mean, the last 2 years have been pretty good with the Penske champions, but yeah, I'm just so glad. 12 wins compared to Toyota's 9 and Chevy's 15. But man, this ranks third since I started watching on Ford wins because 2018, then 20, then this year had the most, and then 2019, and then 2022, then 2023, and then 2021, of course, has the least. But yeah, this may not happen for a second because Chevrolet is only getting stronger. And the only way Ford is pairing this at this point is there's rumors about Ryan Preece going to RFK, which will do absolutely nothing. Josh Berry going to Wood Brothers might do something. The only new team prospect we're getting next year in the Ford camp is Stewart Haas Racing will become Haas Racing and only field the number 41 Ford, driven by Cup Series winner Cole Custer. That's the only. Eli just ticked me off and he said, "Can you really call yourself a team if you have one car?" Let me tell you something, buddy. There are 11 pit crew members, a crew chief, a driver, and 100 employees at your place. You are absolutely a team if it's one car. Guys, write that down. There is no us There is no me and team, but there is an us and students. I'll just go with that. But there you go. That's my end of season goodbye. I'm so glad we got 12 wins. 12 wins this year. I'm ignoring Eli as he's talking right now. Gavin, guys, he's mentioning Gavin. Where Eli? I need you to talk so I can relay what you're saying. Silence, listeners. I need you to speak. Wait. Mm, mm, mm. Never mind, listeners. It's not worth saying. Well, I don't have much. I don't have much to say. So, I could maybe get into some of my preseason predictions for. I mean, I'm talking to myself on NASCAR. I can do whatever I want. Luke, you're gonna have to tighten those headphones because I'm going to make this episode just a bit lengthier because I've kind of already been into my preseason predictions for next year. I've been thinking about it a lot, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish off with the Toyota camp and say what I think will happen next year. So Ford and Chevy already talked about. Toyota, Chase Briscoe is going to the 19. We don't know what will happen with 2311 racing in front row next year. I mean, Noah Gragson's going, but in terms of just like if they'll be there at all because the court system denied their and injunction into the field next year, they're going to have to race their way into every race. And of course, with Legacy Motor Club kind of still being kind of back markers at this point, your strong teams next year. Denny Hamlin, I don't think he'll be at his same level next year. He's a great driver. He's gone through a lot, but when you're going through all this crap, you just it's a human condition. You simply can't completely focus on the task at hand. Ty Gibbs has a lot of potential. I know Chase Briscoe is going to be awesome next year. And of course, Christopher Bell will probably be really good too. My thoughts for the 2025 Cup season. I'm not going to predict every race. I'll just predict my Daytona 500 winner. And it's been my same prediction since 2019. Ryan Blaney, young Ryan Blaney. And the only basis for this is, I mean, I guess it's not only. I mean, he's always been amazing at plate tracks. But he's been so close since 2018. He's always led laps. He's been so good. I think this year Blaney gets it done. Blaney has a ton of momentum. He got that Martinsville win. He's still a championship contender. I think he's going to win that race. As for the winners of next year, I've been thinking a lot. I've been doing a lot of actually analysis, seeing kind of patterns of what drivers do when they have years like they had this year. It's an odd year, so Joey isn't going to win anything. I'll start with that. I'll start with the Ford camp. Joey, I think, will get a win or two next year. I think he might be a little more solid than he is because I think Joey's going to have nothing to lose next year. He knows about the even year curse. He knows it's a thing. He can laugh with it. But he also knows that means there's really no pressure for next year. No one's really going to honestly expect him to win next year. I think that means Joey's going to have a pretty good year. I think he will make it to the round of 8. I think he's going to have 2 or 3 wins next year. He's going to be really good. I don't think he'll live up to another title defense, though. I think the Team Penske driver that has the potential to really pop off next year because he was so darn good this year. That's the thing. Ryan Blaney, I think, will get at least 4 wins next year. I think he's going to be the best Ford driver in the field because of that fact. He had 7 DNFs this year. He got so many wins stolen from him. Him and Chris Buescher. I think Blaney will get at least 4 wins next year. I think Cindric will get another win. I think Chris Buescher will have a rebound year with 2 or 3 wins. I'm not so sure about Keselowski. He's kind of a wild card at this point in the ownership role. And if Priest goes to RFK, I don't see a lot of change happening, unfortunately. I see Josh Berry winning 1 short track next year and Wood Brothers equipment. I see front row struggling. All in all, I see probably realistically 7 wins for Team Penske. Actually, I guess 8 if you count Josh Berry. They're an aligned team. I think Ford will get double digits next year. I think it's possible to do it again. Your champion will probably be at Ford because they love doing it, apparently. Ryan Blaney, honestly, with how everything's going. But I think a solid 10-win year for Ford is probably going to happen. There is going to be a lopsided end of the garage, though. Ford is going to be the middleman next year. Chevrolet is going to be the giant, and Toyota is going to struggle. I'll just start with Chevrolet. I don't want to start with Toyota. I'll save them for last because there's reasons they'll struggle next year. There's not a reason to think Chevrolet won't get at least another 15 wins next year. At this point, the top 5 road racers in NASCAR are all in Chevrolets. Michael McDowell, AJ Allmendinger, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson. They're not going to lose a road race next year. It's not going to happen. And with the fact that we added another road course means we're probably going to have another Chevrolet winner. It's just hard because as a Ford fan, you see Chevrolet have just all this talent, all of this premium equipment. You know, you got Trackhouse and Hendrick and Colleague and Spire. All these guys are getting stronger, and you have. I don't think there's a single dud driver among them. I don't know who the second Colleague driver is in the 31 next year. I can look at the lineup this year and see. I don't even know if Colleague made it in the top standings because I know Justin Haley. That's the thing. Justin Haley is still with Spire, and I forget where Justin's going next year because that 7 will be Michael McDowell's. Okay, I don't think Colleague has another full-time Cup injury. It's just the 16 entry. But yeah, so Colleague has a good team. Spire has 2 really good teams. Trackhouse has 3 really good teams. Hendrick, 4 elite teams. RCR has Kyle Busch, so you never know what's going to happen. It's just Chevrolet has, it just seems like unlimited firepower next year, and it's hard to see as a Ford fan because I think 10 wins are possible. I could also see us getting less than 8. I mean, just Chevrolet is just so much ridiculous levels of talent. I would say there's no excuse not to get at least 15 wins next year. But I'm going to predict a 19-win season. I'm too depressed to say 20, so I'll just say 19. I think the bulk of those wins, as always, will go to Hendrick. It's hard to say which one will pop off next year because, you know, Byron had last year, Larson had this year, Elliott had 2022, Bowman had 2021. It's like all of them could pop off next year. Following the law of averages, it would say either Elliott or Bowman pops off. But Hendrick will get probably 10 wins at least next year. I can see Trackhouse easily adding another 4 or 5 wins. Kyle Busch will probably get a couple wins after resetting, and then, you know, he, of course, got Spire and Colleague, which have a lot of strengths. They could probably add another win. So it's hard not to see him getting between 15 and 19 wins next year. It's going to be a lot of the same crap we've seen as a Ford fan the last few years. It's going to be a lot of Chevy. That's why I'm really embracing this year. Now, lastly, I do want to talk about that Toyota camp. It's hard because Toyota has always had the least amount of cars. And, you know, next year they're not going to suffer from, I think, a bad lineup. It's just Toyota just has so much going on. First of all, 2311 is going to have to race their way into every race. I think that could happen. And I think Reddit could definitely help. It's just with how the brain works, you have to think that all included Denny Hamlin and 2311 are going to struggle performance-wise because not only are they racing, but they're having to catch up everywhere else. They have to work as a team to get all these issues done. So you got one side of the garage with Denny Hamlin that's really going to be struggling to do everything next year. You have their other support team, Legacy Motor Club, which hasn't been running consistently enough for me to put faith in any sort of wins next year for them. And it leaves you with Ty Gibbs, Chase Briscoe, Christopher Bell. Of course, in the next era, all 3 of them could get at least 4 wins, and all of a sudden Toyota has a 12-win season. However, law of averages says that none of them will get more than 3, and that rookies, like, I guess isn't a rookie, I'm being weird. law of averages says Ty Gibbs probably won't get more than 3 because, you know, most people who win their first race in their first season only usually get 1 or 2. And then you got Christopher Bell, Chase Briscoe. It's hard to doubt against those guys. Here's my prediction. I think Toyota. So my manufacturer battle next year will be Chevy with 19, Ford with 10, and Toyota with 7, which is the exact numbers in reverse what happened in 2019. That's hilarious. But I think that will happen because I can see Christopher Bell and Chase Briscoe each getting 3 wins apiece. Maybe you might lean more 4 and 2 for Bell, and I see Gibbs getting a win, but I don't see Toyota getting more than 7 or 8 wins next year. It's I just feel like seeing how the past has worked out and the law of averages and the law of the mental game and everything, Toyota fans are probably going to be in for kind of an abysmal 2025. Chevrolet fans are getting tongue baited as usual. Chevrolet bias is kind of disgusting at this point. But yeah, they just have so much firepower next year. It's insane. It is insane how many generational talents are driving a Chevrolet next year. Once again, 5 of the best road course racers in the sport. 2 of the best road racers in the sport's history are driving for Chevrolet. And then not just that, but that list doesn't include William Byron or Ross Chastain, or Kyle Busch, 3 other very elite drivers. And then of course you go to Carson Hocevar, who's an up and coming talent, and Daniel Suarez, who could always add a win whenever you need him to. It's just they are loaded to the absolute brink with talent, and it's hard to see how they're not going to get a huge amount of wins. The only way I don't see them winning a ton is if it becomes a year where Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, and maybe Chris Buescher get a lot of wins. Once again, in the next gen era, I think that's kind of the fun part is you can't guarantee anything like maybe you could with the Gen 6 era. But yeah, just kind of seeing what's been going on, seeing what they're getting next year, seeing the scope and who's getting affected by what outside of the sport. I think that's a safe way to say is Chevrolet's probably going to win number 5 in a row manufacturer wise. Ford's going to be good, but Toyota might have some problems. If you got through that prediction, thank you. If not, I understand. Yeah, there we go. That's the end of season thoughts, end of season goodbyes, and preview for next season, which is already, I'm hoping, comes quick. There's not much left to talk about. That was your NASCAR Championship weekend at Phoenix. This has, this has been irreverent. And before we leave, I guess for the sake of keeping the joke alive and keeping you all on your toes, I want you to listen to a little something. That little something may or may not be the sound of a Roush Yates 5.8 liter V8 that generates about 900 horsepower. Enjoy. All right. All right, done, Eli.